The judge overseeing the election interference case of the disgraced former President Donald Trump publicly released a set of heavily redacted documents on Friday, offering a limited look at the evidence prosecutors may use if the case proceeds to trial. Special counsel Jack Smith's team compiled nearly 1,900 pages of material, originally submitted under seal to aid U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan in determining which charges could move forward. This came after the Supreme Court's July ruling that granted former presidents broad immunity for official acts while in office. That ruling in itself should certainly cause alarm bells with you and everybody around the world. Why a far-right Christian nationalist MAGA Republican Supreme Court would vote to protect a far-right Christian nationalist MAGA Republican president, I don't know. This is the issue. The criminality is being protected. The corruption is being protected by a corrupt and criminal Supreme Court. Now, most of the revealed information had already been made public. It includes screenshots of Trump's social media posts around the 2020 election and a transcript of his January 6 video statement where he told rioters to leave the Capitol but added, "We love you and you're very special." The vast majority of the documents released were redacted. These files are believed to contain grand jury testimony, which remains sealed due to secrecy rules surrounding such proceedings. What was visible, though, included excerpts from former Vice President Mike Pence's memoir, witness testimony from the House committee investigating the January 6 riot, and the transcript of Donald Trump's phone call pressuring Georgia officials to find enough votes to overturn his loss to Joe Biden. Also included were fundraising emails from Trump's 2020 campaign and Mike Pence's letter to Congress on the 6th of January, stating he could not unilaterally determine which electoral votes to count. These documents were attached to a 165-page brief unsealed earlier this month, where prosecutors presented new evidence arguing that Donald Trump is not entitled to immunity from prosecution. Well, of course, Trump's legal team objected to the timing of the document release so close to the upcoming election. However, on Thursday, Judge Chutkan denied their request to delay the release, stating that political timing should not influence the legal process. If only all judges took such a level-headed view. On Friday, Donald Trump criticized Tanya Chutkan, calling her the most evil person for ordering the release of these nearly 1,900 pages of previously sealed documents submitted by prosecutors. He accused the U.S. District Judge of making the documents public to damage his chances in the upcoming presidential election. Well, he should have thought of that before he tried to overturn the last election. During an appearance on a podcast, Trump expressed frustration, saying it's a terrible thing what's happening and this judge is the most evil person. He questioned the timing of the release, saying, "What judge would say we're going to release something, a couple of days before?" Trump also criticized special counsel Jack Smith, who filed the documents, referring to him as a sick puppy. He suggested the timing of the release was part of a broader strategy aimed at influencing the election, claiming they're going to release something else, and always before the election, they want to do it before the election, so election interference. This is a case about election interference. This is a case about Trump overturning a legitimate election, failing to get his requests granted in over 60 courts around the country. This strategy of reversing the story and projecting that it is somehow the Department of Justice who are interfering with the election when the election interference is purely and entirely down to Donald Trump. Jack Smith has charged Trump with several crimes relating to his efforts to overturn Trump's loss in the 2020 election to Joe Biden. Tanya Chutkan said if the court withheld information that the public otherwise had a right to access solely because of the potential political consequences of releasing it, that withholding could itself constitute or appear to be election interference. Chutkan had previously addressed Donald Trump's claims of political bias, noting that he repeatedly accuses the government of bad faith partisan bias, but offers no evidence to support those claims. She criticized the defense's approach, writing that it focuses more on political rhetoric than on the legal issues at hand, which she deemed unresponsive and unhelpful to the court. Jack Smith's office responded to Trump's objections to the document release, stating that Trump's claim of political motivation was false, much like the previous claims of selective and vindictive prosecution that had already been dismissed by the courts. Trump's comments about Chutkan came almost a year after she imposed a limited gag order on the case. The order prohibited Trump and other interested parties from making public statements targeting Jack Smith or Jack Smith's staff or defense lawyers or court personnel. Chutkan emphasized that the status of Trump as a presidential candidate did not excuse statements that could jeopardize the legal proceedings. However, the gag order did not restrict Trump from making comments about Chutkan herself. A federal appeals court upheld the gag order in December, but narrowed its scope, allowing Trump to make comments about Smith personally. And that is why Trump now feels that he has carte blanche to run his mouth. Donald Trump, the only president in American history to overturn or seek to overturn a legitimate election. He tried to overturn the election result. That language has become so commonplace that we don't maybe think of how insane it is. But think about it. Imagine if Barack Obama tried to overturn the results of the 2008 election if he didn't win. Imagine if Bill Clinton tried to overturn his election. The idea of people in this very high office seeking to overturn the election as the incumbent, it doesn't bear thinking about. And yet somehow Donald Trump has managed to turn this egregious event into just another day in the life and times of Donald J. Trump. The guy is a lifelong criminal. He doesn't know any other way. To him, it's perfectly normal to phone Brad Raffensperger and request more votes than he got, or to pressure Volodymyr Zelensky on the telephone and say, "Give me dirt on the Bidens or I won't send you the gear that we promised you." This is how Donald Trump operates. He blackmails, he pressures, he just thinks that that is deal-making or negotiation. He has no concept of the rule of law and never has. And that is why America needs a prosecutor in the Oval Office. That's why Kamala Harris, as somebody who represents law enforcement, is an essential candidate for the office of president, because we've been used to this lawlessness from Donald Trump. And to get the United States back on track, to regain its standing in the world, so it is seen as a lawful and respectful country, we need to rid ourselves of the past and focus on having somebody who has spent a lifetime dealing with criminals like Donald Trump. That is how you eradicate Trumpism. He gets beat by a former prosecutor. I'm Anthony Davis. You can catch me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast on Wednesdays, co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.